Hello, everyone, and welcome to LeeLa. I'm Lee Philbrook. It's going to be a fun show this evening. We're going to start off with a little background on myself and my co-hosts. Then there'll be an opening intention, followed by our special guest, George MacNabb. He'll be talking about communicate with confidence, the power of breath. There'll then be questions, a reading of a short passage, our closing intentions, and announcements. So here we go. I'd like to introduce my co-host, Lisa English.
Thanks so much, Lee. Welcome to LeeLa, everyone. This is a place where we hope to inspire you all to live an intentional and congruent life. It's also a place where you can play, have fun, learn, and explore. I'm a teacher, a content creator, and entrepreneur, and I do content creations for small businesses where I help them navigate this digital world that we're all living in right now, whether that's via Zoom, online marketing platforms, or social media. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it back over to my co-host, Lee Philbrook.
Thanks. I'm a Reiki master, a craniosacral therapist, a master practitioner of neuro-linguistic programming and hypnotherapy. And neuro-linguistic programming, or NLP, is like learning the language of the mind. It's like getting the owner's manual for your mind. I often hear the phrases, I wish things were different, or I feel stuck in the circumstances of my life. And I notice that these people are not able to make long-lasting changes, or they continue to express why things don't work. The tools and techniques that I use or employ with my clients create sustainable changes, and they're now living their best lives. The mission of the LeeLa community is to transform conversations into actions that make a difference. And with that being said, I'd like to do our opening intention, and this really connects us and holds the space for the evening. So please close your eyes. May divine grace surround us, uphold us, and cherish us all. May it support us and our sacred trust and community. May we be strong together and our journeys be brighter and higher for having walked side by side. May we be guides for others and ourselves with clarity, tenderness, and light, feeling gentle in our minds and clear with our words, being strong in our creations, sending peace in all directions of time. With gratitude to all, we take this moment to arrive and join together. Please open your eyes. Welcome to the room. And now over to Lisa English to introduce our special guest.
George MacNabb has been in the broadcast industry in Toronto for over 30 years. After graduating from Ryerson University, he has hosted and performed in a variety of television and radio programs, as well as voiceover and film. In 1977, he joined the CBC as a radio and television announcer. Over the years, George has hosted a variety of programs and read news and traffic reports. George has taught communication skills at Seneca, Centennial, and George Brown Colleges, as well as University of Toronto and Ryerson. He created MacNabb Enterprises in 1986 to present his unique package of presentation and speaking skills. Since then, he has trained hundreds of corporate managers and company employees at Nokia, Merrill Lynch, Nesbitt Burns, and Wood Gundy, to name a few. George says the voice is the most powerful tool a person can have as a presenter. The secret is to learn the techniques of breathing and speaking power, and then the natural and relaxed voice will come shining through. It is now my pleasure to pass the floor over to our special guest, George MacNabb.
Thank you, Lisa. Thank you very much, Lee. It's a wonderful opportunity for me to sit here and talk to you tonight. It's one of the most exciting things of my life. I've never been on a Zoom call before. One of the things that I did years ago when I was working for a company in Toronto, they had come into the room at 8:30 in the morning after having a night of partying. It was a corporation. There were about 20 or 30 in the room. And I was sitting there waiting for my introduction at 8:30 in the morning, and I looked in the back of the room, and there was this guy with his head on his hands, all hung over and everything. And I thought, every time I do these things, I'm getting a general introduction of George MacNabb's done this and the wonderful voice and all that sort of stuff. And please welcome George MacNabb. And I thought, how am I going to wake up this room after they've come on a night of partying? So I stood up in front of the room and I did the voice that I did for you. And everybody in the room went, what is that? And the guy at the back of the room, he raised his head up off his hands like this, as if he couldn't believe what he was hearing. And he stayed with me the whole day. And at the end of it, he came up to me and said, you know, I'm a comedian by trade. I just do this to make money and survive. But at nighttime, I'm in an audience talking to them and communicating them with jokes. And he said, when you did that to me this morning, I woke up and I was waiting for the next hit. And I wanted to thank you very much for waking me up, because it otherwise could have been probably a very boring day. And what I want to talk to you about today is like in the introduction. I want to talk about your mind, your reaction to what I did to you here tonight. Some of you know the game because I have some people who are friends of mine on the Zoom room tonight. And some of you know the game, but a lot of you didn't. And I do that just to see what your mind reacts with. Like number one, oh, this must be a joke. Number two, oh, if this is the voice he has, I'm not going to listen to him much longer. And on and on and on. And I usually get that kind of reaction in a room. And as a matter of fact, when I start talking normally, people go, oh, thank heavens, it's not going to be a day of pain. Because when I do this for corporations, I'm with them for about 8 hours, like from 9 till 5 kind of thing. And they'll go, oh, I can't be with this guy with that kind of voice. So anyway, that's the kind of thing I want to introduce you to, which is your mind. I do not know what you thought about that opening of mine. Your mind had a thought about it, but the thought you had is your mind talking to you about the reality of what's going on right now. And the difficulty you have as a speaker is getting your information from out of your brain and your mouth and over across the room into the other brains. And the other brains are busy talking to themselves. I bet you there's some of them, there's what, 21 people here tonight roughly? I bet you some of you haven't had dinner, and through the evening you're gonna say, gee whiz, I wonder what I'm gonna have for dinner tonight. Oh my, I hope the phone doesn't ring. I hope George isn't too long. There's a TV show, and don't forget, tonight's the vice president's debate. We have to watch that. And all these thoughts are going through people's minds. So here I am up here trying to present information to you in one form or another, and to get inside your brain and go, and give you a little bit of information. And then I back off and let you assimilate it and put it in your pocket of information. This all started for me in teaching way back when I was doing Centennial College. I was invited to come over and teach a public speaking course for a whole week, like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, for a couple of years, actually. And when I went over to do the interview with the dean and everything, she said, look, you can do whatever you want in the classroom. It's yours. The course has never been designed yet. So why don't you do that? And I said, okay, great. So I had a lot of fun, because what I did is I went back in my history of broadcasting and all that sort of stuff, and all the various people in my life that I've learned a great deal from. And one of the things I learned at Ryerson was a thing called diaphragmatic breathing, which I'll talk about in just a moment. But the other thing I learned from a lot of entertainers and performers, opera singers, ballet dancers even, considering that, was that a lot of the stuff that we do, we never think to warm up before we do our presentation. I warmed up for well over half an hour before I hit you here tonight, so that when I was ready to go, I was ready to go right on the spot. And there's a certain energy level that I got to that I know will communicate to you without allowing my mind to be interfered with the conversation that's going on in my mind, which is, oh, gee, what am I going to do next? It doesn't matter. I'm out talking, my mind talking to myself. And this is the game that I want to play with you tonight. I don't know whether you mentioned it, but Lisa, I think, mentioned something about bringing a pen and a pencil. So I want to talk to you about fear, the fear of public speaking. And I've had many of those occasions. The Centennial College one is a good example. My first day in class, 20 students in the room. I thought, what am I going to teach them? Holy Toledo. And I sat there and looked out into the room, and they were more scared than I was. And I thought, wow, what an opportunity. So all I did was invite them up in front of the room and say, introduce yourself and tell me what you're doing in college, you know, engineering, healthcare, something like that. And tell me what you'd like to get out of the class, what you'd like to get out of the program. And as they were talking, as they continued, I thought, somehow I got to make this real for them. So we started talking about fears. And one guy said, oh, I hate it when I stand up in class and talk because everybody's going to be laughing at me, or I'm afraid they're going to be judging me and having opinions. Well, that goes with the territory. If you're going to stand in front of a room, people are going to judge you no matter what. It goes with the territory, the human being. Anyway, so what I did was I got them to put their fears up on the board. And one after another, they put all the different fears up there. And all of a sudden, at the end of the class, the board was filled with all these little idiosyncrasies and fears and concerns they had, like forgetting my lines, forgetting my words, oh, not telling everybody everything. And oh, it was amazing. It was like a room full of psychology. But you know, they walked out of the room feeling a little better, being able to express the fears and concerns about public speaking. So I took that information and I built on it, and I jotted down the stuff. And then I tried the same experiment about 2 or 3 weeks later. And I said, okay, instead of introducing yourself, I want you to go up and put your fear on the board, make it real again, so you can address it during this course. And they went up, and all of a sudden, one person would write down, I'm afraid of forgetting. We'll start with that. And he put a check mark by it. And then another guy would come up and put a check mark. And then a woman would come up and put another check mark. And I said, so the fears began to diminish. So after a while, it got down to be about 10 or 15 major fears that each of them had. And after a while, they started looking at the board and realized they're all in the same boat together. They all had the same kind of fear, the same kind of upset concerns that other people had. And all of a sudden, it bonded them. And after that, they didn't care so much about their fears. They kind of stood up and let it fly and didn't care. And it was really quite amazing to observe that conundrum, if you will. After that, I started getting into developing concepts and ideas. And at the time, I was working at CBC, and I had my own issues as well. I mean, when I started in '77, I was a young buck. And, I had a lot of professionals around me. There were about 42 announcers at the time and hosts and stuff, the George MacNabs of the world from the past. But all I learned from them was each of them had their own little techniques of survival and skills. And we talked about it. What did you do when you were on TV for that first time? Well, here's a little trick that I tried. And they'd pass it on to me. So the next thing I know, I started building all these things up, and I brought them into the classroom to try them on the kids. And they were having a ball with them. And then the voice power techniques, which I do and I've been doing for years and years with all kinds of corporations and stuff, that all came from I believe it was Maury Deserti, one of my teachers at Ryerson at the time, back in '67, '68. He taught me a breathing technique, which I'm going to teach you tonight. And it really did help a great deal with calming the nerves and relaxing the body before a presentation. Because no matter who you are, an actor, a performer, or what have you, there are moments when the little bit of energy comes in and goes, woo, gee whiz, this is not your normal presentation. Some of my friends who are actors used to say they get all wound up backstage waiting to go on stage, but as soon as they hit the stage, it was ta-da, and they let it roll. So anyway, let's have some fun with this. I wanted to look at a concept here. I don't know whether Lisa has it. She can put it up. It's what I call the block concept. There it is there. There's you on the left there as the speaker. The blocks and fears are in between, and you as the audience. So your job as a communicator is how do you get across the blocks and fears you have to your audience? They're waiting for you to tell them something. So what you do is you get a look at that. I had an analogy this morning. I was telling Lisa about it, and it was like a football. You're like a quarterback in a football game, and you got the football of information, and you're trying to throw it over to your audience and say, here. But your blocks and your fears are the other team members who are trying to take you down and tackle you and throw you to the ground. You know, that little fear of, don't forget, George, point number 2, that's really, really important, blah, blah, blah. And the mind is chattering away like crazy. So anyway, that analogy I thought made a lot of sense. So your job as a speaker is how do you get through or over to your audience so you're able to see them. Now I'm going to click on the gallery view here just to see who's here and who's playing away and the visual. And I see you there. There's my buddy, Uncle Chris. Hi, Uncle Chris. How are you doing? Unmute yourself, my son. Oh, look at Roger. Roger's standing in the background. Isn't that special? You look better in the background, Raj. Anyway, so the idea here is that I just want to communicate some things to various people. There are quite a number of people on tonight, and I want to thank them for coming, old buddies of mine from the past, some of them my former students and what have you. And so anyway, I just want to share with you the ideas I have for breaking the mental barriers that you have before you go into a presentation. So if you could unmute yourselves and take a moment and write down the one fear that you have. And I'd like to chat with some of you about those fears just to see your reality of it and what comes across, because a lot of times you have a fear and you think it's really, really big inside of you. Like, I'm afraid that, you know, you shake too much or whatever the case may be. But in actual fact, it may not be the truth. It may be that you see it differently than other people see it. And that's the whole point. So that's the stuff I want to bring out to you today. Is the energy that you think is real, and you go, oh my God, I'm ugly and I'm on this, you know, all the various adjectives you'd use to describe yourself. Oh, I always forget, so therefore I hate doing it. Well, maybe when people see you, they see you differently than other people see you. And so that's the important thing to get. Like, I'm watching myself now in my first Zoom room, and it's like, oh, not too bad. Yeah, a little bit of slacky jaw, but other than that, I guess I'll survive. You know, that kind of insanity. So take a moment and jot down the little thing that you think is your fear or your concern or something like that in presentations. And we'll take a moment and have a chat with 1 or 2 of you, or maybe 3 or 4, depends who's excited to talk to me. And we'll go from there into some exercises that'll help you with breakthroughs, mental breakthroughs and breathing breakthroughs, to get you to the other side of the box.
George, we have one from Jill who put
Okay.
it in the chat box. She said her fear is going too far off script and or losing focus on the structure.
Okay. Well, here's the answer with that one. Nobody knows what you're going to say, so you can't forget anything. And if you put that in your mind, it'll relax you altogether. If I've done many a presentation where I thought I'm going to cover these points, and I get off and I say, oh, I forgot to cover number 2 and number 5. Oh, well, it doesn't matter. They don't know anyway. So you just stand up, speak, shut up, and sit down. Whatever comes out, comes out. And it'll free your mind from being so concentrated on the information. It'll relax you so that you say, oh, like, you have no idea what I'm going to do tonight. And the truth is, I have a bit of an idea. I have some notes here, you know, little things. I'll look down, and if it gives my eye, then I'll do it. And if not, then I'll move on to the next one. See, it doesn't matter. Because if I cover the 2 or 3 points that I want to cover with all of you in the 1 hour that I have to play with you, then I've done my job. So because most of the time you don't get to really experience more than 2 or 3 points, because the other times your mind is chattering away. You're talking about this or whatever. And I can tell by looking at some of you, you can tell when you disappear. There's a thought that hits your head, and oh, then you might want to jot it down. At that brief moment, I could be telling you the most exciting thing in the world. So if I don't set it up for you, then you're not going to hear it. Go back to your early days of teaching, or a student and a teacher. I was talking to Lisa about this today. What a weird world, eh? COVID-19, she's a teacher. She's been teaching students with masks on in the room, and the other half by internet. And it's like, holy Toledo. What a world, eh? Looking out and seeing students with masks on. How can you see any communication there? But it's so uncanny. I just thought, wow. But even me doing this one tonight with you people, I mean, I haven't done this in my whole life. And it's like, wow, this is a different game. Usually I'm standing up in front of a room, showing exercises and doing all that kind of stuff. So it's really fascinating to watch how the dynamic is changing. But I think this is the new world. Believe it or not, this is the new game. I mean, I saw a thing on LinkedIn, if any of you are on LinkedIn, it was a woman who did a job interview by Zoom, never met the people at the board of directors, did the whole job interview, and then spent the whole rest of the time talking why she lost her job on the job interview, not knowing any of the people who were interviewing her. So, I mean, that's a whole flip from when the generation that I came from, where you went into a corporate office, sat down, discussed things with the board of directors and blah, blah, blah. No, not anymore. That game is gone, totally gone.
We've got a couple more here, George. I've got 3 more people that have mentioned their fears in the chat box.
Oh my God, 3 more.
So I'll read them out to you. So Heather says, my fear is of not being prepared enough. It seems overwhelming to prepare as much as I think is necessary to do a good job. Well, really to do a great job, because that's what I expect of myself.
Yeah, doing a great job. Boy, it's a hard sword to carry the rest of your life. I mean, you can do the job, and the great job, that's judgment and opinion and observation of other people and yourself, of course. But I don't know, what is a great job? Agreement? When a bunch of people say, you did a great job tonight, George. Oh, good. Oh, thank you very much. But does it really mean anything beyond that? That's the whole point I'm trying to get across. The point I'm trying to get across is, and this is an example, Lee, of, remember we were talking about mind melts? There's a trick that I use for mind melts, and here it is. The trick that I use for mind melts is I repeat the previous statement that I said to bring you back into the conversation and to bring my mind back into the conversation. So it's a little trick that you can use. Change the inflection of your voice. The thing that I really want to get across here is this, that your mind is always interfering with your conversation. It's always there chattering away. So this thing about being great or the best at doing something, you can only do the best you can do. What else is there? You know, the rest is just judgment and opinion. You can't go any farther than that, really. Think about it. Okay, next question.
Jessica says, getting so excited that I rush, talk too quickly, and lose people along the way. A bit hyper.
Excellent. That's where the breathing techniques I'm going to teach you, the diaphragmatic breathing techniques, will help that all together. Believe me, believe it or not, the breath is the core of this whole thing. The breath is what puts the oxygen in your body. It puts it into your brain so you can think, so you're able to express yourselves. And if you don't have enough oxygen, because what happens is you get so afraid, it shuts off your wind. You're not able to get a good full breath. And as a result, you shut down and your mind said, oh, you're nervous, watch out. And the next thing you know, you try to take a breath and you can only do half a chest. And it's like, oh no. Oh no, and you get more panicky as time goes on. And it just builds and builds and builds until you find a way to, you know, I used to do this in class when I got too nervous. I say, okay, break time. And that handled it. So the kids would run off and then I go collect myself, go do breathing exercises, come back into the room and I was able to play again. So again, let me bring you back to the thought that I had before, which was look and see what each of you are thinking as I'm talking. Is it about what I'm saying, or is it really about something else that's going on in your brain? I got to go to the washroom, or I got to do this, or I hope he doesn't talk. Pay attention to what your brain is talking to you right now. What am I going to have for dessert? Gee, when George is finished you know what I'm having? I'm going to have a beer and my leftover pizza. And I've been thinking about that because I haven't had dinner. So I'm going to finish at about 8:30 or so and run in and have my evening beer, which I normally have at 6, but I did not. One little tip about that too, if you're ever doing a presentation, never ever eat before it, because you'll spend the whole presentation burping and doing all kind of body gestures that you're going to dislike a great deal. I had a little bit of something to eat, a little bit of hummus and peppers around 3 o'clock, but that's all I've had to eat. And the reason is your body's busy digesting, and you're trying to do a diaphragmatic breath. There's no way it's going to happen. Anyway, moving on. Lisa.
Okay, Shanti says, will people think my information is helpful, interesting, or relevant?
Will people think? Well, you'll never know. You'll never know unless they have an opinion chart that this information was very helpful and I'm glad I attended. You're going to have that chance to do that with me after I'm finished tonight. You know, you'll be able to make your opinions and judgment of the whole thing. I don't know. It's just one of those things. You throw out the information and you hope. It's like fishing. Here you are. Here I am. I've got a bait on the end of the hook here, and I'm going, who did I catch? And I can tell who I catch, and if I don't catch you, I'll try something else. I'll throw a different bait on, and I'll throw that at you. So after a while, I'm going to catch you because something will create an interest in your mind. I don't know what it is yet, but as I play with you and see how you're reacting to me, I'll be able to say something that'll perk you up and say, oh, I'm interested in that. Or it could be, I don't want to know about diaphragmatic breathing, but I'd like to know more about the psychology of the mind. Okay, great, we can talk about that. You see what I'm saying? As long as you're able to jump from one to the other to create an interest in the listening, which is what you're doing right now, create an interest in the listening, then that's really the objective. The decision making is all up to you. The evaluation is in your hands, not mine. I'm already there. You get the game? Lisa?
Yes. We do have a question, so I might save that for a question time later.
Yeah.
If there's maybe anyone else who wants to unmute, or if you want to put your final comments in the chat for George and I can read them out.
Okay, does anyone want to speak to me? Do I have any players in the field of football?
Oh, George.
Astrid, how you doing, girl?
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
You touched on this a little bit. However, I thought maybe you could add something. And
Sure.
That is, when one has done something live, like a teaching or guiding for some time, and then suddenly you're on Zoom, and I don't necessarily mean classroom teaching, but where it really requires that people see certain movements and expressions and hear vocalizations. And, you know, they're kind of seeing only half of you. And then you can go all the way back, but then the mic doesn't pick it up, and that means getting extra equipment. But it's still a bit unusual, or I don't know, unusual might not be the word, but it's just a bit distracting for me that it's digital, even though, it's kind of like television. But there is something about connecting, because I've started this live. It's not like something that I always did digitally or on television,
Right.
or on an audio video. So there's a bit of that. There's some other things too, but this really started coming up for me unexpectedly too.
Yes. What would you think your question is after all that? A one-line question.
A one-line question. How can I manage this little bit of discomfort feeling? It's like walking into a room and not really being comfortable in there.
Okay.
even though you know some of the people.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
understand.
yeah,
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah, I've been there
mhm,
many, many times.
yeah.
I don't know whether there's an answer to that. I'll give you a little thing that I used to do, though.
Okay.
In corporations, when I went to do a corporation, number one, I would never speak to anybody who was coming into the room. I'd be sitting in the corner at the back of the room, and I did this deliberately. I didn't speak to any of them because I didn't want them to hear my voice so that they would start judging me before I got up in front of the room. Okay? Once I started with that, I carried a briefcase. And I carried the briefcase when they introduced me. Here's George MacNabb. And I walked along the back of the room very quietly and softly and very, very gently walked up the center of the aisle. There'd be about 50 people in the room. And I get to the front of the room and I'm still quiet. I haven't said a word. And I put the briefcase on the table. And what I did was I created a visual distraction for them all because the question was, what's in the briefcase? What did he bring up and put that there? What's he going to take out of it? Once I created that, then I was able to stand in front of the room and say, hi, everybody, how you doing? And off I go with my routine. And then after a while, I'd open the briefcase and I'd take out the handouts that I was giving to the students or the corporation. So what it did was it gave me enough time to kind of check the audience out before I said anything to them. You might want to consider that. It's all an experiment. Believe me, it's true.
Hmm. Okay, I'll see how I can modulate, take that and transform it into.
Here's another thing, Astrid.
Yeah,
It's all an experiment. You go in and you say,
yeah.
what am I going to do with this group? Here's a guy over here. Here's a woman here. I wonder what I can do to wake them up. Something different. Because you
Hmm.
entertain yourself as well as the audience. Because if you're not enjoying doing what you're doing and presenting information in a fun and loving manner, then it's very, very difficult if you're very serious and hang on page 3, page 4, and then sit down and go home. No, there's more to it than that. It's about sharing yourself with people and sharing ideas and concepts that you've discovered over the years. I mean, I've been at this game well over 60 years now. And it's like the things I've observed is like absolutely amazing. And some of my friends on the call tonight, like Brian, my friend here, he's been in broadcasting and theater and all that stuff for years and years. And we've learned a great deal over the last 50 years and stuff that we can impart to other people to make their lives less painful. I guess that's the game.
Hmm.
The pain.
Hmm.
My game is, yeah, my game is to take away the pain. In the Zoom room. Yeah, here we are. Little cliches, eh?
I think you hit on something there with when to rediscover the fun this is
Yeah.
when I'm in a different kind of room
Ah,
and to create that in a different way for myself. I think you hit on it there. I think that's
here's
important
another
for
one
me,
too. Here's
or
another
else it
one that
doesn't work. Yeah.
I had a guy I was training, and for some reason he said, I don't know what it is. I've been in a room of 40 people, and the chairs are all lined up in the auditorium. When they put the last row of chairs in, I start to freak out. And I said, oh, well, I wonder what it is. He said, look, I want to hire you to help me with this. I don't know what it is. So he started talking, and I worked with him in the room, and I'd back up 5 feet, and I say, okay, carry on. And then I'd back up another 5 feet, and then I'd get 40 chairs away. And then finally, I jumped to 50 chairs away. And he said, oh, he says, I can't see you. I said, oh. So when you can't see who's in the back of the room, your mind freaks out. So maybe you need a pair of glasses. That was his answer, as simple as that. So he went and got his eyes tested, and he was losing distance. So once he saw the back of the room, he didn't get scared, because when his eyes got blurry, he was afraid because he couldn't see them back there. A simple little thing like that. So begin examining your life in terms of uncomfortable rooms or comfortable rooms. What's the difference?
Yeah.
Why is one room more comfortable than another? Boy, you
Hmm.
should see my living room for this setup. I tell you, lights here and my garbage is all over the place. I'll be glad when this is over. I can put my living room back to order again, you know? It's incredible.
Thank you, George. Appreciate it. Yeah.
Thanks for the fun, Astrid. Okay, are we moving on? I think we better, eh? Yep, exactly. We're down at the end of the part one part. I did want to bring in one more little comment, though, and I looked down at my notes here and I saw baby breath. Let me tell you that quick little story because it's priceless. I'm teaching at the Ontario Medical Association. I've got vice presidents and presidents around the table. There's about 8 or 10 of them. I'm standing in front of the room and I'm going to be teaching them public speaking skills. And I use the idea of that when a baby is born, they breathe from the diaphragm. It's an automatic reaction. And they come out of the womb and they go, ah! And that's a diaphragmatic breath. So I mentioned that in the room, and one doctor turned to me and said, George, I don't think that is correct. I'm not sure that babies come out with a breathing from the diaphragm. And then a woman across the vice president said, no, Harry, I'm sorry, but George is correct. I've done a lot of research on this, and I have found that diaphragmatic breathing begins when you're born. It's an automatic reflex as a child. What happens is, as the older we get, we lose the technique because we're 8, 9, and 10. We're running around, we're still using it, but as we get older, we get more lazy. We're not hunting for buffalo anymore. We're not doing any of the running around stuff. So we lose that diaphragmatic breath and we forget how to use it. So it's not until later in our lives, as all of you are sitting there, that's when we learn it again. And tonight I'm going to show you that technique, which is something you already know, but you've forgotten how to use. So with that in mind, let's jump into the diaphragmatic breathing and I'll play some games with you and show you how to do it. The simplest and easiest way to do it is to put your hand on your chest, your hand on your diaphragm. Your diaphragm's just a little above your belly button. It's a little higher for females versus males. So what I want you to do, and the easiest way to do it, I found, is to open your mouth and take a breath. And see what hand moves in your body. Is it your hand on the chest or is it the hand on the diaphragm? So try it again on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Breathe. And see what hand moves on your chest. It would be good if some of you could put your cameras on, and then I can see which hand is moving so I can help you. You know, Jill and Judy and Heather, and if you wish, don't force yourself. I'm okay with it. So put your hand on your chest and take a breath. Yeah, notice what part of your body moves. Now, another way to do it is to lie down on the sofa. Usually when I'm in a classroom, I bring a student up, put them on a table, and then put a book on their diaphragm, and then they breathe into the book. That's the secret, simple way to do it. So I bring the kids up and, okay, come over here, Harry, and lie on the table. I put a book on him and I said, okay, take a breath. And he raises the book up and down. That's how you learn and teach. So what we're really learning is how to relearn diaphragmatic breathing. So you can have the breath to be able to speak for long periods of time doing presentations without having to take 15 or 20 breaths, as most people do, because they run out of breath. And this is the power source right here of the whole thing. You'll notice if you get nervous, your energy shuts down, you're taking a breath, and all of a sudden it can't get deep. And so you cut your sentences in half. So you change your verbal delivery. Everything changes, and your mind goes, oh, you're nervous, look out, you can't breathe right. Oh, watch out, you're going to fall off the edge of the cliff. That's not true. If you learn diaphragmatic breathing, that all disappears in the blink of an eye. It's absolutely wonderful. So with that, we will continue on with a bunch of things called tongue twisters and some exercises for the mouth and the tongue, such as A-E-I-O-U. I do this in front of the mirror every morning. A-E-I-O-U. And it gets all the muscles in the face working. A-E-I-O-U. I don't owe you any money anymore. And I play with it and have some fun with it. I also sing certain songs. One song I used to sing on my way to CBC warming up before the newscast was a country and western song that allowed you to flow in and out. So in one breath, I used to go, I got a tangled mind, I've got a broken heart. And I'd play with this country and western song just for a little bit of fun. So pick a song that you like to sing, use a diaphragmatic breath, and see how long you can sing the song without taking the second breath. Tongue twisters are a thing for enunciation. I'll show you how to do them. And we lose a lot of enunciation as we get older. Certainly when it comes to, once you get over 60, it's really quite difficult because you don't have the same mechanism anymore. It doesn't respond the same way. So you have to do a rethinking. Anyway, Lisa, have you got that sheet up there? Okay, I'm going to show you how to do these tongue twisters, and I'll read them all through. And I'd like you to participate by raising your hand and saying, okay, I'll try one, and pick one and try it and see how it helps you. What this helps you with is breathing, number 1, 2, enunciation and pronunciation, and 3, building up a stamina to do these things. I'm going to read each of these in one breath. Okay, one breath. So watch how I do it. I'm going to use my sheet here because it's a little smaller print, but I memorized most of these anyway. So it's good to sit up in the chair, have your back straight so you're able to take a nice deep breath. So I'm going to take a breath and do the very first one. Oliver Oglethorpe. Okay, here we go. Oliver Oglethorpe ogled an owl and an oyster. Did Oliver Oglethorpe ogle an owl and an oyster? If Oliver Oglethorpe ogled an owl and an oyster, where are the owl and oyster Oliver Oglethorpe ogled? Now, the secret of the game is knowing the story. So if you read the story, it's like Oliver Oglethorpe, the guy named, ogled, looked at an owl and an oyster. Okay, statement of fact. Did Oliver Oglethorpe ogle an owl and an oyster? Question. If Oliver Oglethorpe ogled an owl and an oyster, yeah. Where are the owl and oyster Oliver Oglethorpe ogled? I don't know. I wasn't there. It was Oliver who was there. So basically, it's a story, and you tell it in one breath. And that's how you begin to develop the strength of the diaphragm and to push through the idea of the story. All right, number 2, 5 brave maids. This is the easy one I like. Breath. Deep diaphragmatic breath. 5 brave maids sitting on 5 broad beds, braiding broad braids. I said to those 5 brave maids sitting on 5 broad beds, braiding broad braids, braid broad braids, brave maids. Now that's easy in one breath. Sometimes I can do 2 or 3 in one breath, just to develop stamina. The next one, Betty Batter. Betty Batter bought some butter, but said she, the butter's bitter. If I put it in my batter, it will make my batter bitter. So she bought some better butter, and she put the better batter in the bitter batter, made the bitter batter better. See how you can use hand expressions to tell the story? Basically, tongue twisters are stories. And once they get implanted in your brain, they're really easy, but they're great exercises. I tell you, you do these in the morning and you go to work, people are going to wonder, holy Toledo, you're speaking much clearer. I don't know why. That kind of thing. All right, here's another one. This is the most difficult, Theophilus thistle. This one's a bugger because it's TH, the TH sound. This, that, these, and those. You know, if you repeat those words, this, that, these, those, them, all the TH sounds, very difficult for the mouth. So that's when you do the A-E-I-O-U. That helps you with your mouth formation in doing this one. All right, so I'll do it in one breath. Theophilus thistle, the thistle sifter, sifted a sieve of unsifted thistles. If Theophilus thistle, the thistle sifter, sifted a sieve of unsifted thistles, where is the sieve of unsifted thistles? Theophilus thistle, the thistle so sifted. Now, that's a tough one. You'll find that when you practice on your own, that's a real hard one to grab a hold of. The last one is the P sound. Pa, 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 pa. Peter Piper, one breath, take a breath. Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers. A peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked. If Peter Piper picked a peck of pickled peppers, where is the peck of pickled peppers Peter Piper picked? You see the story? Try to understand the story, and it'll make it a lot easier for you to do the tongue twisters and move on, okay? All right, great. Now I'm going to do a few more for you just to show you exactly how. I don't have these on the screen, but if you want them, we can maybe send them to you later. This is a good one here. It's called a tutor. A tutor who tooted the flute tried to tutor two tutors to toot. Said the two to their tutor, is it tougher to toot or to tutor two tutors to toot? How much wood? You may have heard that one. How much wood would a woodchuck chuck if a woodchuck could chuck wood? He would chuck, he would, as much as he could, and chuck as much wood as a woodchuck would if a woodchuck could chuck wood. Chuck, 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 chuck. Now, by the way, all this stuff is on the internet. Click in Tongue Twisters Internet. There's buckets of them in there. You don't have any trouble finding stuff. It's really quite amazing. And today, just for the fun of it, I checked out the web page for public speaking. There are so many public speaking courses online. It's mind-boggling. Just go in there. There's some free ones in there, like the one I'm doing with you tonight, that kind of stuff. See if you can hook onto one and have some fun with it. Right, that's the woodchuck chuck one. Now, these are single line ones. What you do with these is you read one line, and then you repeat it each and every time. So you do it in one breath. Again, it's the one breath. Read each of the following aloud 3 times in one breath. She stood at the door of the fish sauce shop, welcoming him in. I'll repeat. She stood at the door of the fish sauce shop. You try that and see how easy it is. She stood at the door of the fish sauce shop. And this is the fun that you have because you find something that twists your tongue around and say, I better practice that one, the S sound. Some sunshine, some shun shade. Percy Pig is plump and pink. I like plump pink pigs, I think. Some of these are quite difficult and you have to say them 3 times. Miss Smith dismisseth us. Old oily Ollie oils old oily Ottos. That kind of thing. So there's tons of these online. If you want, we can send them to you after the presentation. But here's one that I like. It's a story, and I hope that you like it too. I'm trying to keep an eye on my time here. Oh, we're doing fine. Here's a good one. I don't do it in one breath. It's too long. A tree toad loved a she toad that lived up in a tree. She was a 3-toed tree toad, but a 2-toed toad was he. The 2-toed toad tried to win the she toad's friendly nod, for the 2-toed toad loved the ground on which the 3-toed toad trod. But no matter how the 2-toed tree toad tried, he could not please her whim. In her tree-toed bower, with her 3-toed power, the she toad vetoed him. And I've always loved that little one because it's so easy to come off the tongue, but it's great to practice. And here's another one. I think you'll like this one. This one comes out of, let's see, page 24. Yes. This one's called Mr. Pfister's Tongue Twister. I picked this up from an English teacher at Centennial College. I just happened to be going by and I said, what are you looking at? He says, oh, this is a tongue twister I give my English class. So as a teacher, what you do is you go to other teachers and say, well, what do you teach? Oh, I teach this. Well, if you can scoff some of their materials to help you in the classroom, that's what you do. Everybody shares. It's a good idea. Here's the story. Mr. Pfister's Tongue Twister. Mr. Pfister's sister Sue enjoys tongue twisters. She should. Sue sells seashells. The store Sue sells seashells in is near the seashore. It's simply called Sue's Seashore Seashell Store. Naturally, Sue searches the seashore for seashells she sells. Some say Sue's silly for selling seashells in a seashore store, but Sue's smart. She smiles. Sometimes Mr. Pfister helps her sister Sue search for seashells. He enjoys tongue twisters too, but he doesn't sell seashells. He sells silk sheets. The store he sells silk sheets in is near Sue's Seashore Seashell Store. It's called Mr. Pfister's Seashore Silk Sheet Store. One day, Mr. Pfister told Sister Sue, I sold 6 silk sheets to 6 sheiks who came into my seashore silk sheet store. Mr. Pfister Sue shrieked. They must be the same 6 sheiks I sold 60 seashells. Shucks, said Mr. Pfister. The same 6 sheiks must have visited your seashore seashell store. Yeah, smiled Sue. Mr. Pfister chuckled. Selling 6 silk sheets to the same 6 sheiks has brought 60 she-cells seems to have twisted your tongue, my dear Sue. And that was Mr. Pfister's tongue twister. So you can have fun with that on the S sound, but also trying to tell the story. That's the beauty of it. Okay, so that's the end of this part of the presentation. The other thing I want to show you are some more tricks that you can add. One is silence. I didn't demonstrate it very much here, but you remember when your teachers in class said this will be on exams, and you went, write it down and blah, blah. That was the attention getter. This is going to be on the exams class. Right away, they got your attention and you wrote it down. Think about some of the tricks the teacher used on you. One of them is silence, and I like to use it a great deal. I used to use it in companies when I was making a point. Here's how it went. One of the most important things that you can learn here today is this. And I'd start walking across the front of the room, but I'd have my finger up to keep their attention. And I'd get halfway across and I'd go, and then I'd carry on, and then I'd say it at the end of the front of the room. This was like a 20-foot walk. But you know what? Everybody watched me no matter what. And so if you can not worry about your own brain screwing your head up because your brain's going to say, you better say something, you better say something. If you can do that, it's a great thing to practice because it shows you how silence can be the great attention getter. So consider that. The other one was ums and humming, using ums. Take a breath and hold it, like a monotone, like a singer. Almost sounds like a yoga thing or something you're doing. Ha, 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 ha. Doesn't matter what sound you make, just move the voice around. Again, the A-E-I-O-U, tongue and lip exercises, I've mentioned that. It's so important because it gets great flexibility in the face. All right, here we go. Diaphragm breathing, tongue twisters. Great, that's all done. Next one was, oh yeah, this was a great story. This was something I had working with a guy at a company called Nesbitt Burns. I was in the room, and at the back of the room, this guy I was working with on volume levels, like 1 to 10. I'll show that in my second presentation coming up in November. Lisa and Lee will share that with you at the end of the presentation. I'm doing a 2-parter. So this guy, I kept watching, and I'm working with him on a 1 to 10 label. So 1 is like soft, 2 is a little more, 3 for developing the volume of the room, and number 10 is like, full screaming kind of thing, right? So this guy, I couldn't get his mouth to open more than a 6. So one day, one moment I was standing there and I was looking at him and I thought, gee, I wonder if this would work. And so I walked up to him and I stood next to him and I said, "What's your name, Sergeant?" And he went, "Frank, sir. I'm really happy to be here, sir." And the room went nuts because they never heard this guy, Frank, speak so loud in their lives. And they stood up and applauded and they said, "Yeah, Frank, that's the volume we want you to use." Excellent. So he had a breakthrough and he realized, see, a lot of you think that you speak loudly, but you really don't. Your voices are quiet and soft, and you have to speak loudly to fill a room. It's a little easier here on a computer, but again, I don't know what the quality of the microphone is on this computer, but again, the point being that if the energy is in the room, that energy goes to everybody else and they get to find their own level. This level I'm doing with you is probably around a 6, 7, sometimes at 8, depending on just the kind of thing I want to push. Okay, so that was that little story. And then, let's see. Oh, yeah. Okay, that's it for that part. All right, let's throw it back to you then. Any questions in the meantime about anything I can help you with, or any more questions there? Astrid?
Yeah.
Good.
The diaphragmatic breathing, is it with the mouth open? Are you there? Oh.
Yeah, you can do it open, or you can also do it closed. You know, if you do it closed, that trains you.
Yes.
Yeah, I can feel it myself. As soon as I close my mouth, I mean, the mouth is the easiest way, but of course you don't go around town going, that kind of thing. So
Yeah.
to learn how to breathe through the nose and down into the diaphragm, but the mouth open just begins you. That's the secret.
Yes.
So the
Okay.
idea is the breath is to quiet the mind, to help you quiet and relax the mind and the body. Because the body is going to do stuff when you're not relaxed. And it'll surprise you, some of the things that it will do. Yeah. Anybody else?
Thank you.
Elaine.
Hey, Elaine, how you doing, girl?
Okay, how are you?
I'm good.
My problem or my challenge is when I'm giving a presentation,
Yes.
usually at a library,
Right.
and people are coming and going, things happen, lots of noises, lots of distractions, you never know what's happening. And how do I manage to stay in focus and kind of ignore that when it's going on?
Oh, that's a good one. That's a real difficult one. You stay focused simply by, my secret is to master the art of your opening. If you get your opening down solid and clear, what will happen is the rest will fall into place. There's something about it. I can't explain it. Even your extra, when you're finishing up, I don't worry about extras. I just say, okay, that's it. Have a good day and I'll see you tomorrow, that kind of thing. But openings are so important because you can then come out, and then the strength, once you get one or 2 minutes into the room speaking at your volume of level, then all of a sudden it's like, I'm okay now. And you don't even see all of that confusion going on. Just think of what it would be like if you couldn't see. You wouldn't see all that stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of it too is noise in the background and
Yeah.
other
Oh, yeah. Well, look at all the people here tonight, right? I have no idea what's going on, but some of them might have phones next to them, and the phone goes ding, ding, and they look down at their little iPads and their iPhones. The distractions that people have are absolutely remarkable today. And I don't think you can actually control it. I remember when I was doing courses at George Brown College. Is that where you and I worked out, Elaine? George?
Yeah.
Wow, far out. How long was that? 100 years ago, was it?
No, it was 150.
150, I thought so, yeah. But you look still pretty good.
You do.
Yeah. I was doing stuff at George Brown College, and it was just about mind confusion. And I forget what it was that I was doing exactly. See, I just had a mind melt there because I thought, oh, I know what it was. Yeah, cell phones, when they first came into the classroom. I had to ban them from the class. I said, look, we're doing a speaking class. I can't have phones ringing while somebody's up doing a presentation or a speech. That's not fair to them. So I said, would you mind just putting your phones off while you're there? But you could still see people in the back of the room going click, 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 click. What are you looking at, Lee? I see you looking down. What were you doing?
That was it. It triggered me to actually look at the phone to see if Lisa had said something to me. So there you go.
Exactly. You see what I mean?
Yeah.
We don't have any hope with that. So you got to let the distractions just go, because you can't do it. There's no way of controlling it unless you think that what you have to say is really important. So you set the important statement up with something like, hey, this is really important. Pay attention. Something like that. You can, come on, class, get your heads together up here. Here's where the information is. That kind of thing. Whatever trick do you think will work for yourself? But try it sometime. Just say, here's the most important thing I have to tell you today. Try that one, Elaine, and see if that works. And all of a sudden, you're going to have people going, pay attention. Then what are you going to do? You're going to have to give it to them, you see?
Right.
Yeah, that's the neat part. Maybe you're afraid to get their attention because they might ask you a question.
Actually, I like the questions.
Very good. Very good.
Okay.
Anybody else?
Yeah, George, I just wanted to say, I don't know if you can see this, but you brought back an amazing memory. This was my favorite book when I was little.
Oh my God, good for you.
And I became a speech language pathologist, so maybe it was related. But I was obsessed with tongue twisters when I was little.
Oh, isn't that funny?
It just brought back this memory, so thank you so much. It was a lot of
Yeah.
fun.
But there's a wonderful example, Susan, of me up here talking. I say tongue twisters. Her mind goes, oh, where's that book that I had? So I've lost her mind. She went off to find the damn book.
But I brought the computer with me and was listening the whole time.
Exactly, yeah. So this is why you, a perfect example of why you have no control of your audience's mind. It just goes everywhere, everywhere. You know, I say one little word like diaphragmatic breathing. Oh, I remember when I did that when I was in grade 6. I hated that teacher. Do you remember the teachers that you had in your life? I know teachers based on the energy they had in the room. We had a teacher called Sparky McLean. Worst teacher in the world. He sat in the chair, opened the book, and read from the book the whole time. That's why he got the name Sparky. I grew up in a place called Sydney, Cape Breton, Nova Scotia. And I tell you, we didn't know a lot about the world down there. But one thing we did learn was performing. And I used to be in a group called the Coachmen, 3 singers. And we'd stand up in front of the room and we started singing, and we used to have rehearsals at my house. And then all of a sudden, some smartass in the group said, oh, let's go and perform at the high school. They're having a concert. And I said, okay, let's go. So I'm up there at the concert, and the song was called something like Freight Train. It's like a Kingston trio kind of idea, just 3 of us singing. We had good voices. We played guitar. All of a sudden, I looked down, and who's in the front row but my mother? I didn't want to perform in front of my mother. It embarrassed me. I didn't want her there, but there she was, and my mother was a perker. She was always, oh, that's my son up there. I got up in front of the mic to sing the second verse, forgot every word. Do you know what I did? I made it up. Hey, train, keep on coming, yeah. Big train, great big train coming. You freight train, keep on coming now, yeah. And I made up the words. And then I backed off, and the boys are looking at me, the other 2 as if I've gone nuts. They don't know what's going on. I just kept playing the game. And then the third guy came in, and he sang his verse, and we sat down. And then afterwards, we discussed it. And they said, what happened? I said, I just forgot every word of that song. I didn't know what to say, so I just kept singing something. So that's really the name of the game. Just keep on trucking. It doesn't matter. And you know what? Nobody said anything to me. My mother wouldn't have known the words to that song anyway, so it didn't matter. All she said was, oh, you're wonderful, very, very good. But I didn't like it when my parents were in the room, or my sister, because it was embarrassing to me that this is family, eh? So that's the kind of stuff I want you people to look at. What is it that stops you from being open and expressing yourself? What is that fear that comes in and grabs you each and every time? And once you can identify it, then you can make it real. Like that stuff I told about putting up on the board, very, very important. Very important, because it made it real for the students, and the students were able to say, oh, that's my fear up there. It doesn't necessarily mean that I have to occupy it all the time. And as time went by, a lot of it just dissipated, just drifted away. They were blown away by that. But once you make it real, once you can see it in front of you, then it's like, maybe it's not so bad after all. And a lot of this stuff goes back to our childhood. You know, some parent says something to us, you know, like, oh, I hope you're not speaking. I hated speaking when I was a kid. I hope they don't ask you to speak. Then they're passing on their negativity to you, but you don't know it at the time. You're just a kid. So the next thing you know, you stand up there and you're getting nervous as all get out, but you can't remember. But you remembered your mother's comment or your father's comment or something to that effect that went way back. So this is why you want to examine that little thing of what's your fear? What do you think is going to happen to you if you die in front of the room? Well, I doubt if you're going to do that. But the point is, what is it that stops you from being totally expressive into the room where you're able to go, hi, how you doing? Party, party. The Zoom room is active now. Let's rock and roll. What are we doing, you know? So if I can touch you with any of those thoughts, it would be really appreciative if you'd give me feedback on that. But I want you to examine what it is that stops you from performing and expressing yourself. And you will find as time goes on that it starts to dissipate the more you do the breathing exercises, because that's where your power comes from. The source of public speaking is the diaphragm. Ah-ha! I'm finished. Lisa, Lee?
Awesome. Thank you so much. What an ending.
I didn't know it was going to go that way.
I do want to ask one more question because Sharon had asked this earlier on the call. So we do have time for this last question.
Yeah.
So she had asked, how do you set up folks to receive the message? So she was talking about that, the 3 boxes, and how do you set it up to receive the message to get through from your fear?
Right. You give them something to get distracted by. Remember I told you about the finger? It's amazing how that little trick in a room is like, you know, this is really important. And as soon as you see that, the room goes, oh, he said the word important. That gets their attention. Remember, whatever you want to do, sometimes I scratch my head and use that as a technique, which was, you know what I thought? And then you give the thought out. But as soon as you scratch your head or do something that reminds them that you're going to do something, you train the audience to pay attention to, oh, he's going to say something important because he scratched his head. Or you can do something like, you know what? Anything like that, but be consistent with it, because that sets their mind up to receive the information. Like teachers would say, this is going to be on your exam. Oh, that was my bell to tell me that the party's over. Thank you for coming tonight, all of you. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
For our closing intentions, please shut your eyes. As we close our time together, with gratitude to all, we pause to offer each other love and kindness. May our understanding of love be expanded by what we have shared as we open ourselves to growth. May we rest in trust and surrender ourselves and our path to divine grace, asking that this time together be protected, corrected, and held high. May we see now through love's eyes and understand beyond words. May we all be safe, happy, and healthy. And may we all rest in full joy and know that there is no distance between friends in time or space. Divine strength and peace surround us until we meet again. Please open your eyes, and now over to Lisa for final announcements.
Thanks so much again, George, for a great and informative evening. We learned tonight the vocal exercises for enunciation and articulation, what blocks our communication, and breathing techniques to dissipate fear. We're going to be sending out those tongue twisters to you all for you to practice via our highlights email that will go out in the next day or two. And George, like he said, will be back for part 2 of this series. It's going to be on vocal power and clarity. And that's Wednesday, November 18th at 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. He will discuss how to use the voice to attract attention and listening. Very good. And how to use your voice to speak louder than your mind. I'm sure it will be great. And our next LeeLa event is Wednesday, October 21st. That's Wings of the Heart Flow Yoga with Stephanie Kittle from Guatemala. You can register online for that. And we're open to suggestions for feedback or any suggestions you guys have in terms of topics or speakers that you want to see on LeeLa. You can email us those. And until next time, everyone, thank you, be well, aloha, and good night.